What's the strangest thing you've caught people doing in high school? This was a catch in my school. One day, a kid brought in little blue pills his dad had hidden away. All the little monkeys thought it would be a great idea to take this unknown drug. Remember, they were about 13 over 14 years old, as it would make class much more fun. Turns out it was Viagra. Made the national news and everything. I taught English in a small Chinese city for a year. There was a kid in one of my classes who was never allowed to sit down, ever. Every single week I would go in, and he alone would be standing the whole time in a class of 60. At first I blew it off and thought the kid was just weird, but after a couple weeks I asked the students what the deal was. Turns out the kid got busted for skipping class and trying to solicit prostitutes in the middle of day. My mom is a secretary at my old high school, and a couple months ago she had to write up this idiot freshman for bringing a homemade tattoo gun to school. He was charging $40 per tattoo. A $40 tattoo you got in the handicapped bathroom stall. But it's okay, because he brought an antibacterial wet wipe, just one, and some weed. All in all, I'm shocked they shut him down. It sounded pretty legit. During a read aloud, this one particular girl, one of those procedurally girls / divas, came up to me and asked to go to the bathroom. We had literally just gotten back in from a restroom break. She started jumping and acting like she was trying really hard to hold it in. So, I'll let her go. 10 or so minutes later she comes back. The entire class is focused on me, and it is dead quiet. She proceeds to explain to me how her butt exploded and she didn't know why. The rest of the class was equally WTF'd. She kept going into weird details before I was able to finally quiet her for her dignity's sake and to go sit down. That was odd. I have this kid who has sensory issues. He loves to play with paper, especially little tiny pieces. It can get annoying when I'm trying to teach and he's playing, but it helps him chill out, so I usually ignore it. One day he forgot to turn in a paper that we worked on in class, so I just went over to his desk to get it out. So much paper. Thousands of little scraps crammed everywhere. His desk was jammed full. He must have been collecting for a while. Then I notice the spare desk next to him is full of paper too. But this paper is folded into ornate origami bugs. Probably 100 origami bugs. Then I notice an art box in that desk, so I take it out. Inside is dead real bugs, a lot of them. He must have been picking them up off the floor for the whole year. I just put it back and didn't say anything but had him clean out his desk the next day. He cried the whole time, even though I told him he could use the extra desk, and then bit me. That was a long school year. This story was told by one of my teachers. At my school we had a unit for the kids with disabilities and special needs. Downs, Asperger's and physical disabilities like blindness. Anyway, there was this couple, I think they both had Downs, and they would just randomly break out and have sex in random places all over the school. Teachers were constantly breaking them up. One day one of our teachers was walking towards an outdoor courtyard when school had let out and saw this couple getting it on right in the middle of the courtyard. On the wooden dais reserved for plays. The teacher went to go break it up but then decided she just couldn't be bothered with that noise and left them to it. Can't say I blame her. I teach high school and was feeling really unwell in the middle of a 100-minute lesson with the worst year 10th class I've ever had. I was super dehydrated and asked one of the rougher boys to make a run to the canteen to get me a bottle of water. I had no cash on me, so I gave him a note to the effect that they should put it on my tab. He disappeared, and it was over 40 minutes before he returned, and I assumed he'd just taken the opportunity to skip out on class. He arrives though, with a 2-liter bottle of water. I begin to ask him where it had come from, assuming he'd been up to the staff room or something, and he says, "Miss, you were really thirsty, so I wanted to get you a big old drink." Right, but where did it come from? You looked really thirsty. You went to the supermarket, didn't you? How did you pay for it? Let's not tell anyone about this, okay? It was a 20-minute walk to the supermarket. He'd also stolen me some painkillers in case I had a headache. Not a teacher, but in my freshman year a kid tried to go to the bathroom and the teacher said he couldn't. He looked at her and said, "You sure?" And she told him to sit down. She continues teaching, and he goes back to his desk and starts rummaging through his bag. He pulls something out and walks to the back of the room. goes to the corner and starts pissing in a bottle. Everyone is staring at him at this point. When he finished, he started walking towards the front, grabs his bag from his desk, and sets the bottle of piss on the teacher's desk, walks out the door, and says, "I'll be in the office." Embarrassed to bring these up, but our dress code requires that students keep their shirts tucked in. Two of the young and pretty teachers had a student who they never told to tuck in his shirt because he would walk around with an erection for a while, then ask to go to the bathroom, then tada, no more erection. They called him Boner Boy. 2 students caught having full-on sex in bathroom. 2 different students caught having oral sex in bathroom. 1 student who is OCD about his pencils and keeps literally 30 plus in his pockets at all times. 1 teacher was really freaked out about it and made him cry by making him throw them away. He was a hero one day when we ran out of pencils in the classroom. 1 student brought pot brownies to school but then panicked when he had a strong reaction. So he spilled the beans because he wanted to go to the hospital. 1 girl brought in 2 dead, run over, dried frogs and showed them around and then didn't understand what the big deal was. 1 kid ate a dead frog in front of a group of kids. 1 kid used to chew up the collars of his shirt constantly, literal pieces of thread strewn around his desk. 1 student was caught over and over again looking at porn in the computer lab. She was in 6th grade at the time. I had to break up a fight while taking a shit at our prom. Kid A walked in while I was in one stall and washed his hands. Kid B walked in with autism and saw pee on the seat. He immediately blamed Kid A and demanded that he clean it up. Kid A sounded terrified, but no matter what he said, Kid B was getting more and more worked up. I finally had to intervene from my seat. Good times. A male student, I'm a male teacher, said to me, "So, you still single? I've been married for 6 years." Student was a middle schooler. A student had a crazy day and drew penises all over the hallway, cafeteria, sidewalk and parking lot. His defense? But they all point east. Edit, adding these as the memories come flooding back. 2 girls gave 2 guys hand jobs during a movie interrupted. 1 student who rubbed his poop all over the bathroom wall and of course denied it. We caught him red-handed. 1 kid pranked a teacher by pulling up a gay porn site on her laptop. Then when he saw how much trouble he was in, he blamed a different kid who was there but was so low functioning he couldn't find Google from Google. 1 kid was showing porn on his PSP and started wanking in front of other students. I'm a middle school teacher. I had a female student who masturbated daily by rubbing her hands over her pants. She would zone out, mouth hanging open and glassy-eyed. After a month or so, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was freaked out, and I was afraid the other students would catch on and destroy her social status. I took her out of the room, asked her if she had an infection, and needed to see the nurse. She asked me why, and I told her that there was no other explanation for why she was constantly rubbing herself. She said she didn't itch. I told her to stop rubbing herself at school because that is something she should do in private, and to let me know if she needed to see the nurse. She never rubbed herself with her hands again. Instead, she figured out how to use the edge of her chair. She would put one leg way back behind her chair and the other one out in front and just rock away with no shame whatsoever. 10th grade English teacher turned washout here. I've still got my share of stories from a small Catholic school with a diverse student population. Kid in my class interrupts the icebreaker activity to ask about his grade. It's 2 weeks until the end of the year, and he has a 20% in my class, hasn't turned in a single assignment. He decides that class time is the best time to negotiate for extra credit. I told him to wait. He said it was important. I told him to wait again and made a big deal of taking down a note to show I didn't forget. Kid pounds his fists on the desk, stands up, and shouts, "You're just a freaking racist," at the top of his lungs, then storms out of my classroom. There's silence for a second. Then I look to the rest of my class and ask, "Okay, be honest. Am I a racist?" They laughed. Then they self-organized to work through the next part of the lesson, so I could chase the kid down and get him to the dean's office. "We got your back," one of them said. I teach a wide range of students, including first graders. One of these first graders, let's call him Bob, because his name is in fact Bob, has a butt fetish. It started about a month ago with butt slapping. Okay, not so weird. Lots of kids hit butts, no big deal. Bob quickly upped the ante with butt grabbing, which is a completely different experience than the fleeting sensation of a butt slap. I was immediately uncomfortable and told Bob to cut it out. Being ass groped is pretty bad, but it got worse. Bob then took a fondness toward coming up behind me and latching his hands onto my belt loops while drilling the top of his head and face squarely into the center of my ass. He would grab on so tight that he would get a few solid seconds of ass to mouth before I managed to free myself from his grasp. It was especially bad because I see Bob after gym class and he is always really sweaty. The past week or so Bob has switched to a hit and run maneuver of waiting until my back is turned, running up, kissing my butt, and running back to his seat. Just a little peck, that's all. I have had several talks with Bob, which get nowhere, because while I'm saying Bob, I do not like when you do that, he's whimpering your butt. I want to rub your butt and sounding like he's gonna cry. All of the other teachers have the same problem with Bob. We don't really know what to do. Bear with me here, long story about, not just a student but a teacher. I'm not a teacher, but my language arts teacher, we'll call him Mr. Smith, told us a story about a senile Bible teacher at our school. Different departments at our school evaluate one another, so today was the Mr. Smith's day to evaluate the Bible teacher. He walks into class, and kids are crying, the Bible teacher pacing back and forth in a rage. Mr. Smith asks what is going on. The teacher screams it's the tribes. The tribes again. Mr. Smith's first assumption was that the poor old man was having a stroke, as he had an unstable medical history. Smith asks again what's going on. The tribes are in the cabinet. At this point Smith is trying to simply save the man some dignity, trying to convince him to come to the office, or the counselor. At the Bible teacher's insistence, Smith checks the cabinet. Sitting in the cabinet is one of the senior students of the class, wearing one of the old tribal masks that was kept in the room where the Bible class was taught. The student simply said, "Sorry Mr. Smith, tribal council," and closes the cabinet door. Mr. Smith opens the cabinet again, orders the kid down, and asks why the Bible teacher had not just told the kid to get down sooner. The Bible teacher then realizes that the tribal council was not a real thing at all, and for 2 weeks he thought that he simply had to let the senior sit in the cabinet wearing the tribal mask during class. He resigned soon after this took place. Not a teacher, but my friend is one of the lab techs for the computer labs for the computer science department. And he noticed in the dark corner of the lab a student was acting weird. Little did this student know that my friend can see all the screens of the computers and monitor students' activities. He discovers this student is watching pornographic material. He walks over to confront the student about it. The student is too into his porn to notice my friend approaching him. As my friend got close, he noticed that the student had a jacket out over his lap, but you could clearly see the student was jerking off to said pornographic material. And my friend yells at him in his Chilean accent, "What are you doing?" This startles the student and the jacket falls, and my poor friend was forced to see the student's genitalia. That student is now banned from the lab, and in a time, that room has been selected for open lab. That corner is known as the dark corner. No one dares to sit over there anymore. I teach grade 6 in a low-income Islamic community that is very volatile. I have a few. I was teaching math in the first class in the morning, and before the class I saw one of my girls scratching her privates. I told her very gently that that is not something she should be doing in front of everyone. 15 minutes into the class she starts wailing with tears rolling down her cheek. She had blood all over her fingers. She just had her first period. I took her out of the class and a female teacher, and I spoke to her and called her mother, who had not talked to the girl about periods. We had, but somehow I guess it is still a shock for them the first time. The girl had no underwear as well. A similar event happened when I took the class outside to teach them about spheres and how they are the most stable structures. Why are all planets and moons spherical? Anyway, we were looking at water droplets, and one girl turns around, and I see she has blood all over her skirt. Same story with her. Then there is a kid who masturbates in class. Well, we have spoken, and thankfully he hasn't been doing it in class. Apparently he was caught by a teacher once in grade 4 and thrashed. There are a few more stories if anyone is interested. Not a teacher, but I have a few stories. In 6th grade, a kid in my class would eat his belly button lint and ate an entire chapter of his history book. In high school band, while watch a video of the concert from the day before, which one of the girls in the front row wear a super short dress. You could see her vagina. The guy no one liked pulled his penis out and start jacking off. Mind you, we have no desks. Like and subscribe for more edit videos.